President Biden welcomed Mexican President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador at the White House on Tuesday. One of the main topics on the negotiating table was securing the U.S.-Mexico border. In fact, the Mexican government agreed to fund $1.5 billion in new construction projects at the border to help improve screening and processing migrants.
The deal comes as the U.S. saw a record number of illegal border crossings in May. According to the Customs and Border Protection, there were over 239,000 encounters. Here to discuss Biden's and AMLO's meetings are Jen Perelman, co-host of JENerational Change, and Melik Abdul, a Republican strategist. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having me.
Melik, do you think that, this is an issue, obviously, that has animated the Republican base for a very long time, and Donald Trump was one of the first candidates to really pay attention to it and channel that frustration over border crossings and the lack of a wall, et cetera. Do you think this is going to continue to be an issue that that Republicans talk about, given that actually my understanding is not a lot got done on that front while Trump was president, and that of course Republicans want to turn around and go after Biden for it, but they were in charge, and I don't think very much border wall got built. What do you say?
And so I think it's probably really important to understand that when it comes to immigration, our border, this is something that Republicans have actually focused on for a while, even during the George Bush administration. The irony about this entire discussion, even the Republican versus Democrat divide, even during the Barack Obama years, I think the Barack Obama and Joe Biden, that administration, they built over, I think, 100 miles of border walls. So this was part of funding that was initially, it was initially started under the Bush administration. The Barack Obama administration actually continued it. So for a while, the Democratic Party were actually in support of border wall construction because we have the numbers to bear that out. It became a political issue once Donald Trump started running for president. And then Democrats thought that border walls were then racist things, even though, again, it's something that the party had supported for a while. I don't think that the Republican Party, the Republican Party will see this effort as probably many of the things that Donald Trump did himself. I push back a bit. It's not that Donald Trump didn't get anything done on the border. Things that were around certain security requirements, enhancing security, everything from drones, which included also border wall construction. I think when people have the discussion of the border, we only talk about the border wall as if there aren't other mechanisms that the federal government takes to enhance security at the border. So we're not talking about border wall construction anymore because it's become a political issue, but this is something that Democrats themselves have supported, even Barack Obama and the current president, Joe Biden.
Yeah, Melik, I'm old enough to remember when Hillary Clinton was running on a border fence. But Jen, let me ask you this. A lot of the scuttlebutt about this meeting...
A fence is not a wall.
apparently that's a distinction with a difference.
Don't send a fence to do a wall's job.
but Jen, a lot of the scuttlebutt online about this meeting was about the fact that it seemed like Alma was lecturing Biden for about 30 minutes on a number of things. There was a little bit of a jab. Some people thought it was a little snark in there about how he felt like he had to open up the border to poor Americans who had to come to Mexico to take advantage of their better gas prices. They've been subsidizing the price of gas. Can you tell us a little bit more about the kinds of things that were discussed in this meeting and why it set Twitter ablaze?
Yeah, I think that from our perspective, from this country's perspective, there's a lot of optics involved here. I think that this administration absolutely knows that it's extremely unpopular, and they don't want to give us anything with regards to any sort of economic justice or real relief for people. So this is one of those things, I think, where they can come out and sort of finagle the narrative however they want and make it look like, oh, look, we're getting Mexico to do all this stuff, which to me is really no different than the nonsense that Trump was spewing when he was running regarding we're going to get them to pay for it. And I think the fact that they're even putting out the amount that they've agreed to pay is also just for optics, because we will never really know what did we offer them in return. What did Joe offer AMLO to be like, oh, yeah, we're going to do all this for you? So that's the story we're never going to know. But as far as the border wall, this has been a bipartisan deportation and wall building process for decades. So I agree. This is not a Republican problem.
Yeah, Melik, there's been a lot of continuation, as you both point out, in the immigration strategy. Of course, then the media comes in and, attacks, for instance, Republicans over, remember, the kids in cages type thing, and then you find out that some of those images predated the Trump administration, that the policy actually hasn't really been changed for people who are, I think, understandably outraged about it. There was like a lot of continuity there. So what does that say about the immigration, the border debate in this country?
I think Bree actually focuses on this a lot, that there are not a lot of nuance to these discussions that we have. So we should be able to talk about the fact that the border wall, as far as a border wall, a physical border wall, barrier, fence, slats, whatever you want to call it, this is something that both sides have discussed. But unfortunately, in our media landscape, the environment in which we're in, we can't have conversations to say, well, hey, remember, Hillary Clinton really did say that. Barack Obama really did support that, because we've weaponized these things. And it happens on both the left and the right, that when it comes to these sort of issues, we weaponize them in a way that we no longer have these sort of nuanced discussions, and it ultimately doesn't serve the American people very well. It served our social media likes and loves and retweets well, but it doesn't serve the American people well, because it misinforms them on what the steps that the federal government has been doing all along. So I agree with everyone on this continuity argument. This is something that has continued under every single president. But when it comes to a border wall itself, that particular thing has become weaponized, even though it's something that the American people have supported all along.
Yeah, Jen, it feels like a really weird place for the Biden administration to be in. We obviously talk a lot about his low poll numbers and his kind of weakness here domestically. And it's interesting to see him in this kind of foreign policy context, similarly showing some vulnerabilities here, not just the quip about the gas, but apparently AMLO was frustrated by the decision not to invite Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, these countries, to the Summit of the Americas just last month. And it seems like there is a kind of different energy in the air with respect to pushback against the United States, which is highlighting, I think, some of the inconsistencies in its foreign policy approach, especially now as it's courting relationships with other countries that I would argue are much more problematic than the ones that were not invited to the Conference of the Americas, because of our need to bring down oil prices and the political need to bring down oil prices. What do you make of this? Is this a kind of meaningful realignment?
I don't know. Again, like I said, I find this to be very optical. To me, all of these kinds of meetings are very optical. And it's really just a matter of who is this administration trying to win over with these optics. You know, this border wall, the immigration, this is definitely much more of an appeal to the right wing kind of talking point. The Democrats always feel the need to kind of match the Republicans when it comes to, we're strong on this, we're strong on that. But I think that Mexico very rightfully understands how vulnerable our country is right now. And I think that they're going to get whatever they can out of it. And I don't know that we'll ever really know what they're getting out of this. That's always my suspicion, is that we don't really know. We only know what we're allowed to know from that meeting. And what we're allowed to know is going to be a rah-rah, go USA propaganda talking point, when we really don't know what we gave up in concession for this. But I just want to say something about this whole border wall thing, that it is completely unreasonable and not based on reason. And I get that people support it, and I get that all these administrations have been doing it. But we know that that is not the source of most of our illegal immigration in this country, is not from illegal border crossings. So this entire thing has been a political football that's now being used in just another direction.
Well, Melik and Jen, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
And we'll be back with more Rising right after this.